Right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Safer Communities Subcommittee meeting on the 26th of March 24. First of all is the evacuation procedure. We're all members. Is there any need to read it? No? We all know the procedures. Right, thank you. Apologies for absence of members away on official council business.
3 apologies. I've got Councillor Bates, which is being subbed tonight by Councillor Simpson. Got Councillor Clues, apologies, who's being subbed by Councillor Hayfield. And I've got Councillor Davies, apologies.
Okay. Everybody happy to accept that? All in favour? Anyone against? Thank you. Any disclosable pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests? Good. Item 4, public participation. None. I'm going to strain through this. Minutes of the subcommittee held on the 20th of November 23.
Sorry, I've just remembered I was supposed to offer Councillor Humphreys apologies.
Okay.
It's his 803rd birthday today.
Can you record that, Julie? Thank you. The minutes of the subcommittee on the 20th of November, it's within the packs. Everybody read them. And has anybody got any points they want to raise off them? If that's the case, I will propose that they're accepted as printed. Seconded by Councillor Villiers. All those in favour? Anyone against? Thank you. Item 6, fly tipping update. And I think that's either Sharon or Millen.
Yeah, I'll let Millen lead on it, and I'm here to answer any questions, Chair.
Through you, Chair. So, yeah, this is just an update on where we are right now. So we've extended, I think, as we say in the report, we've extended the contract with the cameras. So we're relocating them, the AI cameras that we discussed, I think, in the report about a year ago. And also we have we've got agreement for a environmental crime officer, that will hopefully be starting in the next couple of months. And we've got a meeting with HR about that on the 4th of April. So that will be a dedicated officer that will focus on fly tipping. They'll be able to lead the investigations from start to finish, and that will be their main job in our team. Yeah, and then there's a few, we've got a new management system as well, as referenced in the report, that there's been a few issues with, but we are trying to work out based on feedback from the public.
No, Chair, can I just come in there with something? Millen's been very modest here. Millen actually bid for a fly tipping grant a few weeks ago, and I'm pleased to say we found out the other day we've been successful.
Well done,
so there's a couple of prongs to the actual grant determination. So one of them is tackling fly tipping by raising awareness of the household waste duty of care. And the other one is tackling fly tipping at known hotspots, such as by improving infrastructure and or supporting the enforcement activity. So in total, we've been awarded £34,633. And so there are only 23 local authorities for the one determination and 25 for the other. So we did well. Well, Millen did well. Millen did the bid.
There's one thing I'd like to raise about the fly tipping. We've had some very good results recently, the prosecutions. I'd like to see a little bit more publication of them, because there's nothing like, good press to impress on other people the importance of reporting it in a timely manner. Councillor Hayfield, then Councillor Osborne.
Forgive me, it's been many years since I've looked at a report on fly tipping with the authority. and it seems a lot of good stuff is going on, and to be congratulated on the grant. Overall, are we winning?
Through you, Chair. Overall, I would say not at the moment, but we've got all of these measures that we're putting in place to hopefully we will be winning eventually. With a new member of staff that's dedicated to fly tipping, an environmental crime officer, with the cameras going up, we do have reports come in, but we have to rely on witness statements. There's a lot that goes into an investigation, as you know. We've got to have good evidence, and it's not one of our statutory duties, believe it or not, as an environmental health team. And it's something that we've got other more pressing things, and coming up to the end of the year, it's the end of the year for inspections and permitting and things like that. So it sort of took a little bit of a back step. We've had a problem with recruitment as well. We've only got one full-time member of staff other than Millen in the environmental protection team at the moment. But as I say, this environmental crime officer post is being moderated on the 4th of April. So that will go out to advert as soon as we can after that date. And then we will start making inroads with cameras, with obviously this grant funding and with that officer in post, that dedicated officer in post. We are doing some good work with the police as well. Millen went out and did, it's in the report, the meeting in Longley, wasn't it, Millen? So where we can, we are doing what we can, but everything else we've got planned should help massively for the next year.
Councillor Osborne, then Councillor Phillips.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I have seen the social media reference the successes you've had, and it's quite good actually. And it's quite encouraging to see the amount of public, the opinion seems to be turning back. They realise the cost of these cleanups, the way it causes them inconvenience because roads getting blocked, farmers' gates getting blocked, that sort of thing. So I think the public in North Warwickshire really are starting to, do you know what, I am going to say something, I'm not going to keep putting up with this. So that's really commendable that the activities that you've been doing is pushing that ever forward. I think it is an ongoing battle, and I agree with what Councillor Hayfield says, that are we starting to win? But I would say we're getting up there, we're further up, we're not falling down. And I think the appointment of the environmental crime officer, especially in such a rural sort of area, is well needed. Hopefully they'll form a great working relationship with the police and add value and get all these things sort of on a place where they're by exception rather than they're flighted together. So yeah, it's well done from me, really.
Thank you.
Mr. Phillips.
I'd like to reflect the well done as well. It's most appreciated. I was thinking if we, I'd quite happily, as much as we get so many emails, I'd happily receive an email with the list of all of our successes and just dump them up and thank all the officers for all the hard work on a regular basis. I think that's something we should be doing. Just go back to something you did mention, so that we are not sort of solely responsible for dealing with flight tipping as a priority. Who is sort of responsible for it?
Through you, Chair, yeah, we lead on it. We're the lead authority. Obviously, the police can also investigate. It's not a statutory function for environmental health, but it's part of our remit, comes under our remit, really. So yes, we are the lead authority.
Councillor Watson, then Councillor Simpson.
Thanks, Chair. Do you think, or have you seen any correlation? Because I often hear you say there's more flight tipping because we now got a permit scheme in place at the tips and the sites, etc. Whereas, to my mind, I think people who are going to fly tip are going to fly tip anyway. It's almost kind of, is there any correlation, or do you think there's any kind of link?
Chair, again, we have discussed this before, and we haven't established a link. People have said and criticised the booking system for the tip, which is obviously that's county council's decision. But we haven't. There isn't any evidence that has made a difference.
You, Chair, just to add as well, when we last had that report to us, we did a few test runs where somebody hadn't booked and tried to go, and they were allowed to do that. So I think we did 2 runs of that. So we tried to see whether it is causing them to turn away, and they didn't turn away. The officer. Thank you.
I think just echoing what Millen said, that the tip gets a lot of bad press, and they are excellent up there. And provided that they aren't run off their feet, it's easy to make the appointments, and you can usually make appointments for the same day. But if you haven't got an appointment, they're very, very flexible up there, and they're very helpful when you drive in. If they say us old uns with stuff to ship, they'll always muck in and help. Councillor Simpson, then.
Thank you. I mean, I
Councillor
agree with all that. It is easy to make a booking and what have you. But bottom line is, it's just unnecessary bureaucracy. There is no justification that I can see for having to book to go to a tip. What is the value in doing it? I could see the value in doing it in COVID, where social distancing needed to happen. But I all got to remember, it's a public facility paid for by the public for the public to use, and bureaucracy getting in the way of the public using it is typically not helpful. Chairman, I'm delighted to hear a lot of this good stuff that's going on with fly tipping, but it is an absolute scourge in just about every ward in the borough, and it's one of the biggest frustrations that most people have. And I don't go, it seems, a day without somebody telling me of some enormous amount of fly tipping somewhere in the Philongly ward. Maxoak seems to get it, particularly, and perhaps as I think 3.5 report makes clear. So it's really good to hear that we're having some success. It's fantastic to hear that the government is going to give us some more money to do that. But it's still a problem. There's still stuff. So what I'd like to genuinely ask our officers is, what else can we do? What else can we as members help our officers get to a situation where we have won the battle, or we've at least got to the summit and we're starting to go down the other side? Because my perception is there is an enormous amount of this going on. It's costing the public purse a ridiculous amount of cash, vast amounts of officer time, and it's just basically people's antisocial behaviour, why they can't take their rubbish home. Sometimes it's like a van load. Other times it's that wanton disregard for everybody else, where the drink carton goes out the window. I have to tell you, in Maxstoke, we know that, I think one of the comments that I saw after the last village litter pick was, if we were to establish a drinks point for Desperado beer in the village, and we could make enough money on flogging beer to pay for all the litter picking, because the amount of Desperado beer cans we collect is enormous. So genuinely, what else can we as members do to help officers tackle this more effectively?
Could I just add one thing to Councillor Simpson? I'll come to councillors over this time. It's one thing that I've done many times on social media. It's when people say, there's a load of rubbish at the bottom of my drive, somebody pick it up. And I think that is where some of it goes in the back of a van. They take out the bits they want and the rest is fly tipped. So I think that there's an amount of education for the general public not to put stuff at the bottom of the drive. There are recognised people that will pick up the rubbish, a lot of times free of charge if it's something that can weigh in. So there's an education there. Don't leave rubbish at the bottom of your drive, because the chances are it'll end up fly tipped somewhere. I think that is maybe one of the things that we need to push as a council a little bit more to the general public. Let's say that, you're your own worst enemies in some respects, that you're promoting the fly tipping by leaving rubbish at the bottom of your drive. Which one was first? Go on, throw it out.
I'd just like to reflect your view of the peak operators at the recycle centre. They're great. So I went in to recycle some stuff from their village hall, and I said, I need to take another loading. Can I just come back? And they said yes, and they were very helpful. My question was, out of all the people we caught, and when you're tying them down and getting information out of them, where are these people coming from? Are they coming from outside of the county, the county, and dumping it, or as reflectors, or is it local rubbish being dumped? Do we have any stats on that?
through you, Chair, generally it's people from outside of the borough that are coming over the border. We get a lot of house clearances. We get some people that have got waste carriers licenses. So when you look at duty of care, the householder is doing everything they can possibly do. They're checking a license, but then that waste carrier is then going to dump it. So going forward, we need to do a lot of comms around their responsibilities as a householder, and as you said, Chair, you know, I see people in my street put things at the end of the drive. That technically is fly tipping, and also the responsibility that they've got, you know, for their own waste. And then the other side, which is why there's two prongs to this grant determination. We really need comms around raising people's awareness of these people. It's the EA that issue the waste carrier licenses. We've done some work with the EA, because ideally we'd like those people to have their license removed. You know, one misdemeanor, you know. So we do need to do some more work with the Environment Agency, and hopefully, as I said earlier, with this funding, with the comms, with the new person, hopefully, and that person will be liaising with members, we can work together to really, you know, make a dent in.
Councillor Osborne, then.
Yeah, mine was just about what Mark said about the appointment system. I mean, we could ask County why they've continued with that, but from my memory, when it wasn't an appointment system, there'd be very popular times when people would all decide, I'm going to the tip, and you'd have like, well, I've been in the queue once, there's about 30 cars waiting to all parked up on the side of the road to go in the tip, because we'd all decided, unfortunately, we were going to go at the same time. So it could be something like that, but County would be able to, you know, they'd have better justification than we would, I would imagine, for that. That's my view of it.
I'd echo that. Just spread some out further down.
Maybe time slots, peak times, maybe.
Yeah.
Councillor Jackson.
There was just a couple of things really to note in the minutes, but with the booking system, I think it singles out a lot of people that don't use like the internet and things like that, because obviously that's the only way you can book it. I know, particularly my mum's no good using the internet and things. And then the council run a fantastic service, but I think it could do with being advertised a bit more, saying that actually you can have so many items collected for a small amount. And I know quite a few people know about it, but like when I've mentioned it before, and people have said, really, you know, like £25. I think that was the sum before, but I don't know what it is now. But we could do with that being advertised a little bit more.
Councillor Rory, then.
Yeah, I was just going to say about more comms about the collection, but also I would appreciate some information about successes as well, because I know certainly some of the residents around the Advocate second to know, you're getting a little bit fed up with fridges and all sorts ending up in their lanes. So if we can show them, you know, the action is being taken, you know, it'll keep them reporting and make them feel a little bit better. Because I think you do a fab job, you know, especially with the limited resources that you have, you know, and it'll just be good to have the residents knowing what a fab job you're doing.
Okay, Councillor Phillips, then we'll go to the vote.
Yeah, sure. It seems to be quite easy to actually solve the advertising, the pickup service. If we just politely ask all members in an email, put the information in a nice little flyer, and just email it out to members and just say, please, just this week, post this on your Facebook page and all your community pages, and then we can just see if that has a spike. So if we know when it goes out, know when we sort of like think it's fizzled off the boards, and we see if we get a spike, and we just see if we can just. I mean, that's something we can easily do now as members, quite simply, and just give it a go. Especially now the spring and the summer's, you know, coming in.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think we've had some very useful comments. The recommendation is that the report be noted. Move it from the chair, seconded by Councillor Simpson. All those in favour? Anyone against? Thank you. That's unanimous. Right. Move on to item 7, which is the Safer Warwickshire Partnership Serious Violence Prevention Strategy. Over to Julie.
Thank you, Chair. As you'll recall, I brought the last draft to the last meeting, and really it was just so that you saw the final copy that was endorsed. So what you've got there is a copy of the strategy, information around the strategic needs assessment, and really that's just identifying that we're meeting all the requirements of the duty, the mandatory requirements of the duty. So today was really for information only, because we went through a lot of the detail around serious violence strategy in the last meeting. But just to add to that, so in terms of the strategy now being approved, the next stages are around consultation, looking at a local serious violence delivery plan, and working at a county level, but looking at specific areas within each of the districts. So there are fairly, I think, quarterly meetings at a county level. We are going to start looking at the local delivery, which has got a focus predominantly on Atherstone, because that's where we've got issues around assaults and domestic abuse primarily. And we are also, when I say we, actually some of this work is delivered by the county council, so it's not actually me delivering it, but there is some work going on around young people through a company called Tonic, who are doing some research for young people. And that's really helpful, because that builds on some of the work or some of the information that we got from the resident survey around community safety. So I have asked if they could reflect some of the issues around people feeling safe in the daytime, but it dramatically decreased in the resident survey in the evening. So I asked whether they could do the same kind of, introduce some of those questions with the young people to see what was their feelings as well, so we could hopefully get a better understanding. I think there's some more work we can do from the resident survey as well. But yeah, today's really just to share with you the endorsed strategy. So if anyone's got any questions.
We'll go through by page. We'll just check it by exception if anybody's.
I just have a general, really. This is not more of an opinion, really. I mean, I've been on this board now on and off for 2 cycles now. When we keep getting these, it's not a slight at the officer's work. It's more higher up. Will this work? I mean, essentially, we still only have 3 police officers for the area. So it's like, I mean, these are all good with consulting people and things, and 30 grand for labour costs. But this joint up thinking has been around since I was at school as a child, and we seem to be revisiting it. Is this the direction we should be going in, or is it just essentially we are just shuffling the things around on Titanic? It's like we seem to be revisiting these plans on a regular basis, and we still don't have any police officer reports. So it's not directed at you personally, it's not your fault, but like, what's your feeling on this? Let's making, we just had an armed robbery in Kingsbury, and it's like the police didn't attend for an hour. That's not your fault, obviously. It's like we don't have any police officers, so we put all these plans in place, but there's no police officers attending, events. We asked this committee the police officers to report why they didn't attend an armed incident in a park last year, and we never got any feedback on that. An armed incident in a park. So it's like, I mean, so it's not directed at the officers in the slightest, but we seem to be going through all this, and we don't seem to be getting any answers from anybody, really, from higher up.
Yeah. If I just say, I sit on the police and crime panel at Warwick with Philip Seckham, and I will just quote his figures. I'm saying that I agree with them, but I'll quote what he's saying, that we've got more police officers in Warwickshire now than we've ever had, and there are 5 more town centre officers to be placed. There's 2 that's already in place, 1 that's coming, and I think there's about another, is it 20 PCSOs that are in the pipeline?
Chair, I mean, what we could do is get some things on that. I take on board your view. I guess there's 2 different things going on. There's the police, the force, and their key work, and then there's the statutory requirements that we have to meet as a local authority in terms of meeting that, that requirement. So in terms of meeting that requirement, obviously process stuff, it's there, it's done. We've got a strategy, we've got a strategic needs assessment, we've identified the needs. I take on board what you're saying around the police and responding to incidents. And unfortunately, I can't really comment on that because it's not kind of my area. But what I can say is, what it does do is put a spotlight on some of those crucial areas that we do need to get on top of. And like for me, I would say domestic abuse is one of those where we know there's repeat perpetrators in North Warwickshire. So like, for me, that would be one thing that we need to be having a conversation about, like, so what are we going to be doing about it? So what I haven't flagged up here is we've got £30,000 worth of funding next year to look at that local profile. So that should be focusing around assaults and serious injuries. They should be focusing around domestic abuse. £30,000 isn't going to go a long way, but it's a start. And I think you're right. A lot of the issues around community safety have been here a long time, and it's about trying to tackle them, reduce them. And what we see is they move to different areas and different locations. I think it has put a spotlight on serious violence. And I don't want to get into a political debate, but in terms of just the ball game this year, we've done a lot of work around the ball game just to look at. From the advisory group point of view about, serious violence cannot be tolerated. We can't just sit and watch it and we have a ball game. So things are changing, and we a bit like domestic homicide reviews as well as part of serious violence now, where somebody dies as a result of their injuries, there will now be serious violence reviews undertaken as well, so it is being taken seriously. It does put a spotlight on this, but I think now it's the next steps which is really important. So like for the next meeting, I'd hope that we have a local delivery plan that we'll be coming back to talk to you about what we're going to do around the key issues in North Warwickshire.
Yeah, I did understand sort of the statutory what's it. Well, I should have phrased my question as is: are you getting back to by the police? That's really better question. So just want to make sure I didn't think I was attacking you. There's no point you finding people that are suffering domestic abuse and then calling the police and then they go, well, So I think taking your point about police officers, then we got half part-time on for 6 months. So technically we've got 3.5. So yes, we have got more police officers than we did have, but half of one.
But take what I said it with a pinch of salt.
Yes, yeah.
The figures that we were told.
Yeah.
Councillor Hayfield, then Councillor Jackson.
I think when you first started speaking, I heard you ask the question, is it working?
Yeah.
And I absolutely endorse that. I mean, I'm getting a cynical old bugger these days. I've 20, 30 years of this, and I've seen these sort of strategies and partnerships, things come and go. And you end up, there's a problem. We must be seen to do something about it. Let's all get together and talk about it. And let's try and set up some strategies. Does it make a blind bit of difference to what's actually going out there on the streets and things? I'm never convinced it does. Issues like alcohol and drugs are more likely to stimulate violent attacks and things. Some of the conditions people live in and the stresses they feel in their daily lives are likely to lead to violent outbreaks. It's all breaking the law, but I can't say I oppose this because it would be wrong to say that I oppose this. I'm just really doubtful as to whether it's going to work like all the previous ones have worked or not worked. I think the answer is much more complicated than forming partnership agreements with a lot of other partnership agreements to talk about it, but I'm an old cynic. Others may have more optimism than me.
I'm a younger cynic. That's not a reflection of it working.
Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, it's just a real concern for me really, because Anstey Common and Berkshire Heath have been flagged as higher levels of domestic abuse. I don't know if this is the right area to bring it up, but after witnessing a very, very close friend coming from the other side of domestic abuse, I think it's so close to my heart that, things are progressing, and it is an amazing step. What we found in Sammy's case is that the support afterwards is not enough. So she's had bouts of counselling and things like that, but there's not enough there, and then it's almost like she'll ring the police and things, and they don't come, and he's on the doorstep and things like that. Thankfully, is at the moment he's locked away in a dry house, but the support afterwards is not there, and I think that's something that really needs to be worked on. But I'm just wondering about Anscombe and Berkshire being flagged up. What can we do to help our residents in our
Really, Chair, just to say, so in terms of that, we saw that that come up in this latest set of reports, and it does change again geographical areas depending on the data and depending on the reporting, because sometimes it's historic reporting and sometimes it's current reporting. But so just on that, I've managed to get some refuge posters, and some have gone up and some haven't. But they're going up at various notice boards. They've gone into the brewery on Ridge Lane. So there's a number of different locations we looked at. I've contacted Watch County Council Highways. I haven't had a response to say, can we put anything up in bus stops? Is there any, can we put any posters up in bus stops? So we're trying to do look at a range of different ways of trying to get the information out there about what abuse looks like. So it's not just how we always, it could be abuse in terms of control, it could be financial, it could be physical. So we believe there's underreporting in quite a lot of rural areas. And we believe it's about raising awareness about how to report DA, and also to understand about where people can access that support. And some of the posters we've got, they've got telephone numbers. You can literally, if you're in a toilet in a pub and you put them on the toilet doors, you can just rip off the telephone number, and it's just tiny, so you can hide it in a purse or whatever, and then they've got the telephone numbers. So we are doing some work. We were particularly going to look at Atherstone and Annesley based on the data. I am trying to get more information from Refuge about what can be done. And sometimes, I will be very honest, I think it can be frustrating trying to get some communication back on that. But I can assure you that we are doing something. And then just in terms of Councillor Hayfield's point, just as an example, in the last couple of weeks, we're seeing quite a lot of issues in Coleshill at night time, particularly weekends, and there is quite a lot of work going on. So people might not actually see it, but just as a spike in some of the issues that are being experienced along the high street on a weekend.
The Coach Hotel.
I can't say where or what, but the police have had some good arrests as well around it. So that's just a very small example of where we start to see where serious violence is impacting locally. We're talking about more cameras going up to help with the detection. So I do want to reassure people that although sometimes it feels too big and too strategic, there are little nuggets of work taking place.
Could I just say one thing that you say about circulating these things? Could that be done through all the parish councils? Because we've got, I don't know, 30 odd parish councils around, which, are the level, I'll say, closest to the people. So if we could, engage the parish councils in it, it's a good start. Councillor Simpson, then Councillor Osborne. Oh, and then Councillor Watson.
Thanks, Joan. I'm sorry, it's documents like this that really get me annoyed. There are serious issues, really serious issues that affect people's lives. 50 odd pages of stuff like this that will achieve almost nothing other than cutting down another tree. I could have perhaps taken it seriously if there had been better use of English. When you read Our Vision, I had to read bits of this 3 or 4 times if I'd be damned to understand what they were actually trying to say. There is serious violence against English language in this document, and if they'd written it properly, maybe it would have been a little bit more useful. I can't vote for it, Chairman. It's simply not fit for function.
Councillor Osborne and Councillor Watson.
Yeah, it was referenced the the nighttime economy violence. I know I've asked this before, and it is the police, really, the Section 35. Did you ever have any joy with, have they ever issued a Section 35 dispersal order to try and combat the problems that they've got?
I think I followed this up in relation to the PSPO previously, Chair, and I'm sure, I think I came back to Councillor Osborne, I'm sure they said that it hadn't been, I think. I can double check again, but I can't recall from the last meeting, but I definitely followed up with the police after the last meeting.
Yeah, just through you, Chair. I can't remember having that update, but Section 35 is a power that's seriously underused. It's in the law, it's in the statute. And I find it odd that the police are so resistant to using it, but it's one of the better tools they could be making use of in town centres.
Yeah, that's probably a good question that we can ask Julie at one of our next meeting with Jack or somebody to explore Section 35, what its purpose is and what its use is. If you could raise that with the inspector.
Yeah.
Councillor Watson.
Mine's just an offer of help, because I'm on our service improvement working group at county. So I know the people you need to speak to, try and get stuff in bus stop. So if you drop me a line, follow up on that.
Great, that's great, thank you. I'd really appreciate that, because
Councillor then, Owen.
Yeah, I'll just echo about sending information to the parish council. And we have quite a lot, I know it's not just an issue for women, but we have quite a lot of women's groups in the villages. And I know certainly being rural, it's harder for people to access services. So I'd be happy to give you a list of sort of some of the different groups in my villages that you might be able to contact, send them details. And you know, they quite often have email lists of people that they can send that information out to. So any way I can help to try and disperse sort of information about services. I do agree with Councillor Hayfield that there are wider issues, you know, poverty, housing, you know, lack of transport, etc. You know, so it's, I know you're fighting a massive issue with the little pot of money and resource that you have. So it would be good to see sort of how it connects with housing and the other things that are under our sort of control. You know, what are you doing in conjunction with those other departments to try and tackle the issue?
Sure, just to come back on that one, it's so we did have a meeting to look at some of the data, and the data has again changed, because like it does change depending on reporting. But we did have a meeting with some of our partner agencies to try and start looking at what's the theme that sits behind the data. So is it mental health? Is it alcohol dependency? Is it, you know, those kind of things? I think the one thing that stood out the most was about repeat offender, you know, perpetrators. And so I think there's two pieces of work. There's something to be done around better analysis about getting to the bottom of these issues, because that's the only way we're going to problem solve. And the second thing is about, you know, who do we need to work with? How do we work with the police, whatever other agencies, to start looking at these victims and these perpetrators? So it's an interesting one, and I know quite often people won't, you know, even when the police have gone to an incident, they won't be reported. So it's what more can we be doing around those kind of issues? How can we support people better? I do also take your point of view about the counselling post. Unfortunately, it's all funded services, and you know, it's not right that, you know, there's a lack of resources to fund a lot of the additional kind of counselling. But I think again, this is where there is grant funding available and we can apply for it and we meet criteria. This is about being, you know, having a bid ready to go and knowing what we need to be doing for the area.
I think it's just like, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to. Like when you've seen somebody go through it and they become so brainwashed that, you know, they don't believe that they've been a victim of abuse for so long. And then the counselling helps, but then anything can trigger them straight back to where they was, you know, and it's really hard to watch somebody overcome it. But and just knowing that that counselling slot is not enough, you know, but I know it's a start. It's what they can, you know, they can only give so many counselling sessions per person. But yeah, I just think the support afterwards needs to be a bit stronger. But that's not obviously down to you guys, but it's really sad.
Yes, I'd like to echo my thanks for the work of domestic violence. I've quite visited in my area, but I'd actually like to make a suggestion that the board makes a suggestion to the whole council. It sounds to me that our officers do a lot of work, and we are all small little media outlets, and we're an Office 365 council, so this should be a relatively easy thing to do. If we just have a drive that we all have access to, where every time an officer produces a leaflet or has access to a leaflet, anything that is useful, they can just dump it in there, and then we can occasionally check in there, or they can alert us to anything very interesting, and it's all kept there. And then it means that the work that you're doing isn't just lost to the next meeting. I think that, you know, it's a very simple and easy thing to do. We can all help.
Yeah. Is that something for democratic services to create that?
Oh, okay.
We've got to drag you somewhere up more line, haven't we? You can't just sit there. Right, thank you. Right, thanks for all the questions. This is a recommendation to the board that the Safer Communities Subcommittee note the approval of the Safer Warwickshire Partnership Serious Violence Prevention Strategy 2024 to 2030 and the inclusion of the strategy in the Council's list of council plans and strategies. Recommendation B, that the Council note the lead role of the Warwickshire County Council in its development of the future delivery. And C, support the involvement of key services across the Council to implement the delivery plan to meet the outcomes as set out in the strategy. I'll move it from the chair. Seconded by Councillor Watson. All those in favour? Anyone against? And any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Right. There we go. Julie's turn again. The North Warwickshire Community Safety Partnership update.
Thank you, Chair. I think everyone's seen a copy of the report. I'll just highlight a few kind of key areas. As already identified through the serious violence strategy, some of the data performance set out in paragraph 4.1. I think, again, areas of concern around violence with injury, around rape offences. So I think, again, this needs to be discussed further on serious violence and like local profile groups. So when that gets up and running, but I have already flagged this with the county-wide group in terms of concern around these kind of figures that are set out again this quarterly report. The other kind of key areas again around acquisitive crime, so vehicle offences continue to be reported in reduced volumes, but we are still seeing a spike in the activities at Crawley Services, and there's quite a lot of work going on there. But again, it's just to highlight that as an issue. And then also in terms of data, the other one, and it's been raised before, I'm still really concerned around the permanent exclusions in North Warwickshire. So in 2021-22, there were 10, and in 2022-23, there were 21 doubled. Again, we need to see if we can get any latest stats again for maybe this last 6 months. So I wanted to just flag those up as they are areas of concern for the North Warwickshire Community Safety Partnership. We are looking at those stats, and we are dealing with them. Following the last meeting, I don't know if I've got it right, but I know there was a question mark about, in terms of what does that look like in terms of what you're doing? So I have tried my best in terms of setting out what we've talked about in the problem solving meeting. So again, the focus has been around Coleshill train station, and I've listed there on page 55 the kind of key pieces of work that we've been doing. When I say Coleshill train station, I mean you should say Coleshill Parkway. And again, Corley services, that's a problem area that we look at with the data, and again, what we're doing around that. So you've got detail set out on page 56. And then the next section, which is the antisocial behaviour meetings that I chair on a monthly basis. Again, I've tried to give you an idea of the types of pieces of work that we're actually doing over the last quarter. So I've listed about the work we're doing in Kingsbury, around ASB. Then there's things around the police antisocial behaviour policy and the new ASBRA, police ASBRA. We use that internally as well. So our housing use that, other partner organisations use that, and that risks assess. So when our housing go out to what they think to be a vulnerable person or whoever, they risk assess to see if they score highly. If they score highly, then they will be reported into the antisocial behaviour meeting that I chair. And we'll look at each individual case. And then I've just tried to list down there again about other pieces of work that have gone on since the last meeting. So again, you've got things like the public space protection order in Atherstone. I've got some initial results with me that I can share with you. And then I've tried to, in terms of my physical priorities, in terms of the community safety partnership plan, I've tried to list down there what we're doing for serious violence, the number of new cameras we've replaced in the last 12 months, the recent changes over the last quarter in terms of new cameras put in. So we've put a new one in at Coleshill Parkway, we've put a new camera in at Jubilee Court to address issues around ASB, feasibility studies that we've carried out. So hopefully I've tried to provide you more with a detail of what that actually looks like rather than the headlines. So not sure if I've got it right or not, but I've tried to put the detail in. And then the last section is really just to say that the 5 lots of funding that we secured this year, 2 lots which was community safety grants from the Police and Crime Commissioner, all that money has been allocated. We also got 10,000 around CCTV. We've got we've got more than that now. Yeah, 87,000 for Safer Streets. That's all been allocated, and these are funded things like changes to target hardened locations. They've bought brand new cameras that have gone out across the district. They've paid for 2 sets of AI cameras for fly tipping. We bought wildlife cameras, which are the cheaper version of, like when we've got like a little hotspot location and we want to get something out quickly, we'll put a wildlife camera out first of all. So it's paid for things like that. So it's really just to say that all that funding has been allocated, and next year we should automatically receive 30,000 for serious violence and a further 25,000 from Police and Crime Commissioner to look at targeting our priorities.
Councillor Havill, then Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chair. I've enjoyed myself tonight. This is fun. A huge amount of work's going into this. I'm looking through the appendix. Vast array of things that we're concerned about, and we can't do this. We can list it, we can describe it, but we don't have the resources to do all this. Personally, I would say we need to prioritise half a dozen things out of these that we think we can make a real difference on this coming year by investing what resources we've got to do it. Just listing how we got here. It looks impressive, it looks daunting, but it's beyond our reach to tackle all these things at any one time. We need to focus, prioritise, and make a real impact on 3, 4, 5, 6, however many we've got the resources to do. Thank you.
Councillor Simpson?
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Chairman.
Can I be minister, please?
Something else. Personally, I find I feel safer when I hear that criminals have been caught and sentenced. And the report tells me a lot about crime that is happening, that is being reported. Personally, I think there's an awful lot more crime goes on that is actually being reported. But it's not, if you will, focusing for me enough on detection rates. And I think one of the biggest concerns I have in Warwickshire is the very low levels of detection of crime. And within this report, generally there's an awful lot of concerns, a lot of issues, but the one appalling statistic that stands out, which I'd like to know more about what we're going to be able to do, is at 4.1, where we're talking about rape offences. Now, any crime is bad, and any serious crime is awful. But the fact that we've got the highest quarterly totals and higher numbers of rapes, I mean, I was just shocked to read that there have been 14 rape offences, presumably in North Yorkshire, in the period we're looking at. I'm staggered at that. And, 5 within the quarter. That is beyond unacceptable. And so, to Councillor Hayfield's point, all crime is awful. So, all of it shouldn't happen. But it's not equally awful. And there is some awfulness, like rape, that we really need to crack down on with all of the resources that the police and every other partner can bring to bear. And I'd just like to understand more about what are we collectively doing to tackle this. 40 sexual offences. This does not make me feel comfortable at all. Generally for me, the important thing about how do I start to feel safer, how do I start to feel better about crime, is understanding how much has been detected and which criminals have been put out of society to the benefit of everybody else. When I read about 14 rapes, altogether another, 26 sexual offences, honestly, the report, I know this, I'm not aiming this at our office at all, but doesn't make me feel safer reading this report.
Councillor Jackson and Councillor
Sorry, I understand in some sense of what you're saying, but the thing is, every single crime affects a person individually, and what you might deem as more important than another might be, more important to somebody else. And the thing is, any step to reducing crime in general would be something than having nothing. So pushing those that can to make more steps to reduce crime, I think, is more important than saying we need to rule out what's the most important. Because, I don't know, being a victim of crime is not nice, and it's I think everything on there is so important to reduce. And if we can push those that have the power to do more by doing reports like this, I think it's something.
Okay.
I completely agree. Every crime is important. I think I said that. I've been the victim of crime in North Yorkshire on multiple occasions. I've had 2 cars stolen, my house been broken into 3 times. Not once has it been detected. Not once 3 of those occasions the police didn't even turn up. Not once has anything happened to me to suggest that the victim support group even existed, let alone gave a damn. So I absolutely agree, every crime is important, but I can't begin to understand what people must feel like when they've been raped or when a close member of their family has been raped. That's why I say some things are more important than others.
Okay. Councillor Osborne, Councillor Phillips, then Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously the detection rate, as Mark speaks of, that really is not greatest in Warwickshire, across Warwickshire at the moment. But part of the oath that the police take is when they swear their oath, they say to prevent and detect crime. So prevent, I think, comes first, because if you can rather prevent crime, and I think that's where our small piece fits in. And I totally agree with all of the comments that have been made tonight about the figures being unacceptable. They certainly are. But as long as we're doing the bits that we can, and then holding to account, as Mark and Colin have rightly put, all of the other agencies that have an input into this, that's what we should be doing. And I think our comments and discussion tonight from all of us put it into perspective that the whole of our communities are not happy with figures, that our officers can do what they can do with the money and budgets that have been allocated. Through the partnerships, we can do as much as we can. I think Owen has identified tonight that through the various councils, we can try and put as many messages out as we possibly can. That's something that we can do directly. But the prevent bit is what I'd like to see happen.
Okay. Owen?
It's a similar sort of thing to say. I understand this about prevention and about doing our due diligence, but I still go back to my original point. It's similar to across the way. The police aren't attending these. We cannot hold the police to account. We are. I think what's personally, this is my personal view, and I don't want to sound too political, because I think we've a great discussion. Is we as a local authority fill in the void of a lack of policing. And our officers are basically almost being co-opted into doing, small investigations into fly tipping and working with victims, and most probably collecting data and information from these victims as well, because officers aren't attending. It's ridiculous. It's a counter has been broken into so many times and no one's attending. I think we have to do this, and it's important we do it, and it should be noted the hard work. But I think it also should be really noted that our officers are not getting support they should be getting from the police. And that's not the individual police officers. The ones that I've dealt with, they're fantastic. We just need more of them. I think that's what it boils down to.
I think that's something that we, on the police and crime panel, we just stress all the while.
Yeah.
That the police are so thinly spread out that I don't think I wouldn't knock any of the officers.
No,
they all do what they can do. It's the fact that they work 8 hours a day. I mean, we've had some local to me where they said, well, the police haven't been. The person had left some parcels on the back seat of the car and they were nicked. In that case, I think the person who got some equity in that themselves. You don't leave things in the back seat of your car. But the police, they expect the police to do it. But everybody's got a little bit of equity in it. Is that, and I totally agree with you. There ain't enough police, but we press the Police and Crime Commissioner every time about the numbers, and he keeps coming back saying there's more police now than there's ever been. Well,
He's holding something in front of you. He's literally saying the sky's green.
Yeah.
Literally saying the sky's green.
It's the same with the 101 system. We keep pressing that as well.
Yeah.
And the average time for response on that was, I think, it was 8 minutes. Well, if you said to some of my ward members, you go response in 8 minutes, well, they'll be absolutely ecstatic.
Yes.
When they're looking at 20-minute things.
I just think it's just disappointing that it falls to our officers, and then they have to sit here and sort of partially in between. It's not directly you.
Yeah, Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, firstly, can I say I like the structure of the report. Don't necessarily like the reading and the content, because as members have said, it's stark reading. But I like the structure in that it says what the issue is, it makes recommendations, it gives us kind of something to follow. So I just wanted to say that. And there's a lot of detail, a lot of information in there. It's difficult, but I do agree with Councillor Jackson in a way. All crimes are awful, and I know Councillor Simpson has said that all crimes are awful. And it's very difficult to say what's more awful, because for that individual, it's awful. So I think we just need to press, and I know we do. We have regular conversations with the Police and Crime Commissioner about resources to address them all. I think it's a broader social challenge that we have in our society, the fact that these crimes happen in the first place. But yeah, I just wanted to make the point that I like it.
Councillor Simpson.
Thank you. It's a different issue, but what I meant to raise just got sidetracked. On the top of page 8/5, the first paragraph says, persistent absence continues to be an issue in the borough, with 41.5% of pupils of secondary age persistently absent. Have I read that properly? 41.5% of secondary age pupils in schools must be will be half empty.
That shocked me equally, Councillor Simpson. That it's an awful figure, but that has been qualified.
That's just unbelievable.
So just on that, sorry. Is that students that have turned up and then sort of left salt as well?
I couldn't confirm that. I mean, that would be something I would need to look into, but that was reported into another county-wide meeting as well. So it has been raised at different levels. So I believe that the data to be correct. But yeah.
Thank you. Such.
I can tell you the differentiation.
Councillor Barnett, then Hayfield.
I just wanted to comment on, I know it's not been directly produced by you, but the BI reports that come from county, because I've been quite critical of them in the past. And I thought this one was a lot better. The data was a lot better laid out. I thought it was easier to understand. And yeah, I'd like to see more of that type of thing in the future.
Councillor Hayfield.
For me, the proof of put it would be if I found my way back onto this committee in a year's time, this report would be different.
Just come in on that. So obviously there will probably be core things in here that will be the same, because obviously in terms of what I'm reporting on is the responsible authorities community safety strategy, and so a strategic needs assessment is undertaken every 4 years. Mini studies are done every year or every 2 years, and then gets fully reviewed. They will get fully reviewed next year. That data is used to populate our priorities, and then the priorities agreed within the responsible authorities, which is made up obviously of police, fire, borough, county, and so on, and health, although health never attends. And so these priorities aren't just owned by us as a local authority, but they're owned by the other partner organisations as well. So I can't say what that strategic needs assessment is going to say, but we know just from the DA data last month, the last quarter looks slightly different to the data this month. And obviously that does relate to reporting. So I think ultimately we're still going to have headlines, because there are always going to be sexual offences, there are always going to be burglaries, there's always going to be vehicle crime. I guess the key issue is what we're doing about it to tackle the issue. So we will never address vehicle crime in North Warwickshire unless we get on top of Crawley services. And that's the bottom line. We will never have good figures unless Crawley services invest on that side. So they invested on one side of the motorway, but they haven't invested on the other side. The barrier's broken. So we will continue to report issues at Crawley services until further measures take place, because it just won't go away.
Chair, can I just come back on that? You make a very good repost on that, of course you do. I understand that certain priorities are going to be there all the time. I guess what I was fleshing my comments out with was the effectiveness of some of the things here. What effect has it actually had on that particular issue? Or are we going to still be wringing our hands and say, we need to do something about this, we need to do something about that? It's a perennial thing, I know that. But it's not my frustration sometimes that we can outline an issue, we can say what we're doing about it, but how are we going to know next year, looking at next year's report, whether this year's have been effective or not, what has changed, what has improved, what has got worse? I don't know. I know much of it's going to fall on your shoulders. And I pity you for that. But it's but important issues are raised here, and I'm just not sure where we're going with some of them.
Jack, can I just also say, sometimes success looks like more reporting. So we would want to see more reporting of DA, you know, so it's very difficult when we're talking about community safety. We might want to be reporting. So like I'm thinking for example, off-road bikes, we've got a real issue in North Yorkshire about off-road bikes. We actually want to see more reporting off-road bikes. We want to see the numbers go up. So we know communities are saying we're not going to tolerate it. Some ways with fly tipping, it's much the same. You want communities to say, we don't want it on our patch, we're going to report every single incident. So it's very difficult when we're starting to look at community safety data, because in some ways we want that reporting to go up. We want to say it's not going to be tolerated here. We want something done about that. And I think we can't talk about individuals, but we saw an incident in Atherstone where there was a problem. And we saw local people saying, you know, we're scared, we're frightened, we need something done about it. And the police have acted and the person's been arrested. But, you know, those kind of, that's, you know, that, again, so we're going to see assaults have gone up in Atherstone as a result, and probably of particularly one person. But actually, there's a positive outcome. Hopefully that person's been moved on. So it's not so straightforward with community safety. I'd love to say, you know, we want to get rid of we want people to stop reporting on this because the problem's gone away. Actually, in some cases, we want people to report a lot more on these issues. And and there is a lot of complexity around a lot of this issue, because even when we're talking about serious violence, we're doing a lot of work in schools, and what we're uncovering is quite a significant range of issues which are hugely alarming about what people see as acceptable in the home. And we're talking about domestic violence and violence in that home and what they've been exposed to. We're talking about sexual activity and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And so it's interesting doing a lot of this work. There needs to be a lot of education, and you do have to raise awareness, and you do have to say that isn't right, that's not acceptable, that shouldn't be happening. For some people to understand it's not appropriate, that's a crime, that's an issue, that's something we need to get on top of. And I think it's a very complex kind of field of work, really, with multiple issues around alcohol, mental health, finances, food, which all add extra layers of complexity within what we're dealing with.
Thanks, Julie. Councillor Ray.
I was glad to hear you talk about education, because I think that's really vital, whether it's talking about sort of infos online and the impact it's having on our young people in schools. But also in the villages, for example, it doesn't seem too much of a coincidence that we have what we've traditionally called Nottingham knockers, and then a couple of weeks later we'll have a car stolen or some garage broken into. But there are still people in the villages who think, oh, they're just nice lads, they're being rehabilitated. Or I think the most recent one was learning disabilities, or they pretend that they're deaf or something. So it's just educating people. And I don't believe in victim blaming. People should be able to leave parcels in the car. But what can we do to educate people? About having car locks on their wheels, and and if people are knocking on doors, don't buy from them because they won't come back again. Because they're not there to sell you their overpriced tea towels. They're there to see, is it a little old lady on the road, or do they keep their garage locked? That kind of thing. And how can we do more education?
Going back on, I wasn't knocking the person. I'm just saying,
no, I don't. Yeah,
it was the education part that.
Yeah.
We all have equity in that, to make sure that your house is secure and you don't leave any tempting things there. Anyone else?
So I just want to comment on the services. Is there anything that the council could do to put pressure on the services to do the work on the other side?
What particular issue?
So you said Crawley services, there was an issue there.
Crawley services. So, I think the MP is involved, I think. But I think, yes, any pressure because at the moment what we've got is on the south side, we've got a lot of CCTV. On the other side, we haven't. It's basically the curtains are being slashed. And they have had a number of arrests actually in the last couple of weeks there. So they have been monitoring the situation, but it's not as a result of the work that the site are doing. And then unless they get this bid, they are not willing to actually invest in any more CCTV at this current time. So we will never get on top of vehicle crime issues unless we get on top of quality services.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm aware we've spent a bit of time on this, but just as a group, you could send an email to the people that you're talking around, saying that we've got a real concern that until these measures are taken, that the risks of the curtain break-ins are going to continue on that side. The fact that you've evidenced the other side, it's not happening. The solution is pretty obvious. So I think as a whole group, we should be communicating our displeasure with the inaction and trying to encourage measures to be put in place as fast as possible.
And just to be clear about that, is serious organised crime when arrested, they've either come down from the north or come from the south. So mainly from the north, but I think the last arrest made were from the south, from London.
Just a question. Is there anything on the plans for that when it was done? The amount of CCTV that should be there? Is it something we could explore through planning to see whether they conform to the requirements of the plans? Because if they've got the CCTV one side, why haven't they got it the other side? You know, have they complied with the planning requirements?
Chair, on the south side, and I don't know anything to do about the planning, but that was a new lorry park. So I'm unclear.
I think maybe it's a question we could ask Jeff. Was there any? Obviously, Mark's going to say something about planning. Are you?
You're barking at the wrong tree, Chairman. That consent was granted by the Secretary of State after this council refused consent.
Well, okay. That answers that one then.
So can you call him up and ask him to put some CCTV cameras?
Right, yeah, to be honest, I mean, we did, the board, as I remember, was almost unanimous in refused consent, a whole bunch of concerns. Crime was one of them. You know, how do you avoid crime in a dark environment?
Yeah.
You stick lights all over it. What does that help everybody who lives next door to it? Yeah. I mean, there are competing pressures, absolutely, but the property owner is responsible, and they should be doing it, not least because they're charging lorry drivers and their employers to park there and be wrong.
And the best result would be the lorry drivers not to park there and hit their
wallets.
Hit the wallets. But I mean, the tachograph nowadays is pretty tight, isn't it? So they have to.
Chair, I think, but just to say, I think it's us and rugby being hit because of the time from the ports.
Yeah.
So I think it's the two services being hit.
Tachograph hours determine where the lorries settle. Any other comments? Well, thanks again for a lot, and I think Julie's picked up quite a few issues here to follow before the odd hour. Recommendation to the subcommittee: A, that the members consider the update and identify any areas for further scrutiny and consideration. I think that's been covered quite well. That members note progress of the North Warwickshire Community Safety Partnership, and that members note the successful of funding bids, or the success, of funding bids. I'll move that from the chair, seconded by Councillor Millier. All those in favour? Anyone against? It's unanimous. Thank you. That concludes the agenda for tonight. Thanks for your attendance, and it's